Hello and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I will talk about Bali's booming real estate market and what you should know before considering your potential investment here in Bali. Of course, when it comes to your potential real estate investment, it's always important to talk about and think about certain metrics that are important in regards to your investment. Of course, you talk about different areas, different metrics, different locations. You can have your project straight at the beach, a beachfront project. You can also talk about different shares concepts. So in today's video, I will also share more of the idea of different investment types that fits you best. Over the last year, Bali has gotten its well-deserved recognition because straight after Dubai, it's the second most traveled tourist destination. So of course, a lot of investors are interested in getting started and finding their first property here in Bali. But before you get started, of course, let us talk first about the different areas that are interesting to talk about in Bali and which you can possibly consider. I can probably imagine that you have taken the initiative already to do your first research on Google, and you probably found out places like Canggu and Seminyak, which are more of the well-known areas in Bali where you get and you reach a certain occupancy rate, which will be fairly high. But Canggu, Seminyak, they're very crowded. It can be very relaxed in certain areas, but of course, crowd is something that you have to get used to first. So a lot of people also move to certain other areas in Bali, which are going also more towards the south area next to the airport, for example. So if we go below the airport, in the south area, we have the south part of the island, which is called Uluwatu. And there, in my opinion, you have the most beautiful beaches in whole Bali. Here, for example, you have more freedom. You're surrounded by more nature. And of course, the prices for the land options that you can choose from are slightly less expensive than they once in the very crowded tourist areas. Uluwatu, for example, offers a lot of surfing areas, surfing spots. It's well known for its surfing vibe. So a lot of changes are happening down there as well. But of course, if you don't necessarily need the beach or you don't need to live close to the beach, of course, you can also think about Ubud, for example, which is also very well known. And there you have a lot of nature. You're surrounded by nature, by rice fields, a different type of vibe that you have to get used to as well before considering your perfect location, of course. Here in Bali, we talk about two different property types, which is one, the leasehold, and the other one is the freehold, which is of course more expensive because leasing is tied to a certain timeline where you can decide if you want to purchase the land for example, 25 years, 30 years, and so on, which will be slightly cheaper than the one which is defined as freehold. A freehold land is a land that you own entirely. So it is tied to your name. You can sell it at any time. And also what is the case here is that those prices, especially in the touristic areas like Canggu and Seminyak, will be much higher than they will be in different parts in Bali. So here it's very important to also look at different areas that will be important for your investment, but more later in this video. The next factor, and this is probably the most important one, is to have a good understanding of the legal situation locally. Because when you do your first research on the internet, you will find a lot of false information. Even now, if you Google for investment laws in Bali, they will tell you that it's not possible to invest as a private person, but you need to get into a joint venture, for example, with a local, which is not the case here in Bali anymore. Because starting from last year, you're even able to purchase a freehold land as a private person, which most people will not know because they're not up to date here. And here with the Bali Invest, we make sure to really stay updated. We have lawyers, we have accountants, making sure that we are at the newest level of standards and education. But what exactly do I mean with the legal situation? Because one key factor is very important to know, because over the last 2 years or 3 years throughout COVID times, what was happening is that a lot of locals who owns the lands in Bali, of course, they have gotten into debt, into loans. They took certain loans from the bank and left their land contracts, for example, with the bank as security. And now they're not legal owners anymore. So it's very important to have a lawyer or an expert look through your contracts that you're about to sign. Let's hop to the next key point. So very important to understand as well that here in Bali, you have different investment strategies that you can follow. Because of course, when we're talking about real estate, a lot of people know a lot of hedge funds, a lot of crowdfunding systems that are well known out there. which is not the case here with us, the Bali Invest, for example. Just for clarification, of course, you are able to invest into private villa projects through us, depending if you want to have it completely finished or realized, or you want to build it from scratch and want to give us certain ideas that you have in order to realize a project that is suited entirely for you. But here with Bali Invest, we are very well known for an innovative concept in which we allow investors to get started in multi-million-dollar resort projects where you can start from as low as $1,400. You can decide if you want to own 1 share, 10 shares, 100 shares, whatever amount of shares that you want to buy, and diversify your capital in different bigger projects, while of course still being able to prove legal ownership. We are the first company with this kind of investment strategy. So you don't need multiple 6 figures to get started with your private projects, but you can also get started with our shares concept, where you can diversify your capital, build your portfolio with different projects that we are realizing, and of course gain different experiences with certain areas that we are realizing our projects in. Also, in addition to what I've mentioned before, is that there's 2 different types of properties. One is called freehold and the other one is called leasehold. So freehold is of course the most preferred option because you simply own the land. You can sell it at any time. You can own it forever, have an amazing property investment that will increase in value throughout the next years. But leasing makes sense as well because it's much cheaper than the freehold option, and as well as in different areas of the island that I mentioned before, you can even have a profitable investment with leasing, and even more profitable with leasing, because when we're talking about Canggu and Seminyak, where leasing is much more preferred when it comes to price value, we're talking about 30 years of leasing where you gain on average a return of investment of 20 to 25% per year, where it definitely makes sense if you have a cheaper land option. So in this case, you would have your full return of investment within 4 to 5 years. And of course, after 5 years, for example, you can still sell your properties. It has 25 years remaining leasehold time, but people will still buy it because there's a lot of profit to gain from it. A very important note to understand as well is that Bali, of course, is constantly evolving. I don't know about you, but if you have been to Bali, you know that every year something is changing. So you need to make sure that you do your research for future projects coming up in your areas. Because here, for example, with our project in Lovina, we're planning for the future. Of course, this is an amazing destination that we chose. But also what is planned now is for the next years to come that there will be an international airport getting realized, which will play a huge role increasing the value of our properties. So of course, based from our decisions today, we can lead our investment to an amazing and bright looking future. Also for our project in Nusa Ceningan, it's the neighbor island which you can reach within 20 to 25 minutes via boat. It was an amazing destination to choose because there has been built a new multi-million-dollar harbor in Sanur and Ceningan. So we had the prediction more and more tourists are coming to the neighbor islands, which is true actually. So now if you check it out, we have reached record numbers when it comes to tourists. So of course, it definitely makes sense if you have a good understanding of what is important to look for in your investments and which geographical structure and different metrics you need to look after. It definitely makes sense to get into a location which will be fairly cheaper than the other more well-known locations with a lot of upside potential. So to wrap today's video up, I want to share the main factors that are important for you to look after. First, we talked about which areas to invest. Second, and very important key factor is to understand the legal situation, which is meant that your contracts need to be valid. Get an expert, get a lawyer, check your papers and do it right. Then we also talked about different investment strategies. So if you're more of a fan of our shares investment, for example, you can get in touch with us through our website that we will link down below. Also make sure to have a future outlook on your preferred property destination, because this will have a dramatic change for the value of your property. Thank you for watching. My name is Boaz and we talk soon.